Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music, and I'm here to report happily that I'm super busy. I've got a film I'm writing on right now, and it's taking a lot of my time. I can't really count on time to do longer form videos, maybe even the shorts. We'll see how it goes. I thought I would dig into my archive and pull out some older videos. So here's one from 2022. 3 steps, maybe four, you know how I am, to better chord progressions. It actually sort of, looking back on it, it's been a while since I've looked at it, takes a really nice progressive sort of walk through the thinking of rearranging the tones within a kind of a pretty cool progression. It's a quick view, and I'm just going to recommend it. So here you go. 3 steps to better chord progressions.
We've been talking about voicing chords, rearranging the notes to create a better flow. And past that, how to animate the chord's progression. In other words, how to use prepared dissonances, suspensions, and embellishments to get a better, more vital chord progression. Today, I took a simple chord progression and transformed it gradually over the course of maybe 4 or 5 steps. Let's look at those steps right now. All right, here's my chord progression. It's G major 7, D 9, A sus 6, A. You're looking at it here in, I'll just call it root position. And there are a couple of unusual things about it. The middle 2 chords have the same notes, just different roots, right? It's really not bad sounding, and the voicings are kind of jammed together. It's a little blunt, isn't it? Well, my first question to myself was, well, what's the best bass note, and how can I rearrange those chords to get a better sound? And that meant a couple of interesting results, because for the second chord, the D chord, I decided to put the E in the bass. Well, that came out sounding great. And here, the A6-9, the F sharp in the bass, it really changes the sound of the chord. Let's listen to the progression now. You can see I've inverted the chords, right? The A chord wound up with the E in the bass. I really think this is a better way to play these notes. This is lovely, and actually would make a great pad voicing. It loops well. But I knew I needed something with a little more juice to it. I wanted something that would give me a little more propulsion. So I'm going to show you an intermediate step. I took that pad voicing and copied it over, and with the scissor tool, just chopped everything into quarter notes. This is a great way to begin to work, because it gives you a sense of possibilities, especially with preparations and suspensions. For instance, later on we'll see, like this note here, I'm going to wait to have it fall down. Well, that gives me something to work with, and I played around with this for a little while. Okay, so here's my next step. Now, first of all, I realized I didn't want to have the bottom note pulsing. It just sounds stupid. But what I did do was I created some suspensions. In other words, the first note of each group doesn't go to its terminal voice right away. This tone here is the same as there, right? So that's the loop there. This tone here waits to descend to the A. And the same thing happens here. The F sharp waits to go to the E. I'm just waiting by a beat, and I actually get a kind of a nice propulsive effect. Here we go. This is a classic example of suspension by using prepared dissonance. The tone that is sort of waiting to move is prepared by the previous chord and is dissonant to the chord in that measure. And because it's dissonant, it creates forward motion. Well, that might be enough for some people. I actually was pretty pleased with that. But I thought to myself, well, if that works, I bet I can go further. Of course, I sort of knew that I could. So I grabbed some of the inner voices and I started to create what pianists call thumb lines, or what you could just think of as counterpoint. I kept those things that were happening before, right? Those little weights, those little suspensions. And then I went in and I created some motions on beats 3 and 4, or 2, 3, and 4 within each chord to kind of create a really very lovely melodic pattern. Here, let's listen to it. Suddenly, it's much more animated. It's the same chords. Well, I mean, the pulse is lovely, but after that, I looked at all these voicings together, and I said, well, there are places, like for instance, these notes here, where that could be one voice sustained. Does it have to pulse? Does everything have to be broken up in quarters? No, it doesn't. We could be very happy with this, but I was like, well, there's one more step. Let's go to it. So I went back in and I just erased the chops and I extended these tones. So now we're looking at really kind of my sort of final product. This would be terrific in winds or strings, beautiful 4-voice writing. It's almost polyphonic because we have separate motions for each voice in the chord. Because there are sustained tones and moving tones within the chord, and the sustained tones are just hanging there while the moving tones do their job, we hear the motion perhaps a little more strongly. And there's something happening on every quarter note. It's just that our ear gets kind of drawn around in the chord. We could probably take things one step further and use, so let's do it. While we're here, I'm going to flip the second from the bottom voice up an octave and just see what we get here. Okay, so what I did was I grabbed the second voice from the bottom and moved it up an octave, and I grabbed the top voice and moved it up an octave, and what I got was an open-voiced version of the same thing. Let's listen. Well, I hope this has been useful. This is things you can do yourself really quite easily. I sort of just stepped through the process. Revoice your chords so that they're a little more interesting. Chop them up into bits and pieces and say, how can I suspend a voice? Ask yourself, is there a next step? Can an inner voice have motion, like a little line, just stepwise motion? And then finally, well, some of these tones could be extended. Let's not have them be chopped up. And then the last thing we just did, and I hadn't even thought about doing it until I started recording the video, was what if these closed voicings became open? Well, I've talked enough. Like and subscribe and ding the bell. You'll be notified when I do my videos. I'll see you next time.